Collector Society, and got to talk on Barber coinage. And I want to first start off with a little bit about Charles Barber. Charles Barber was much maligned in history, largely due to Walter Breen, who for some reason just didn't like the guy. And so a lot of the negative things written about him kind of originated with Breen. A lot of people think that Barber was a generally disagreeable person, that he had a feud with George Morgan over the silver dollar. They really didn't get along with anyone else, and he was completely disliked by President Theodore Roosevelt and a lot more. And the thing that always struck me was a lot of that stuff just didn't make any sense, and I never saw any evidence to support a lot of those opinions. For instance, Barber was Morgan's boss for almost 40 years. If he really didn't like the guy, he could have gotten rid of him, but he didn't. And Teddy Roosevelt, I mean, the president is the one who appoints the chief engravers of the mint. So if Roosevelt didn't like Barber, he was the one person that could get rid of him. So these things just didn't make any sense. The photo that you can see there of him is the one that sort of everybody used. It was one of the only photos known of the man, and that certainly didn't help his image either. But then 3 years ago, I was very fortunate. I actually met two of Barber's great-grandsons. And by meeting the family and seeing some of the artifacts they had, it just completely redefined Barber and disproved all of those myths. So, I went over and they just had a wealth of really cool stuff from Charles and William Barber. A bust of Lincoln sculpted by Barber, and the original photograph of Lincoln that he used as a model. Original coin sketches, design sketches by William Barber in pen and pencil. Barber's passport, a letter from Woodrow Wilson discussing the inaugural medal, new photos and a painting, original mint memos with his handwritten notes on them. The original presidential proclamation naming William Barber chief engraver, signed by President Andrew Johnson and Secretary of State William Seward. Barber's daughter's diary from their trip to Europe. An important thing about Morgan was in there, and a flag, a rare 39-star flag presented to Barber by Teddy Roosevelt to take on his trip to Europe with him. The 39th star was for Dakota Territory becoming a state, which of course we know that's not what happened. So it's a very rare flag, and he gave his prized heirloom to Barber. Probably something he doesn't do if he dislikes the guy. What we discovered was Roosevelt actually thought very highly of Barber, although he did want to totally go outside all of the mint people for new coin designs in the new century, especially on the gold. And we found absolute proof that Morgan and Barber got along just fine. In fact, they were very close, colleagues. So it was really cool to find these things and debunk these myths. So Barber was born in London in 1840. He moved to the U.S. with his father, William, in 1852 when he was 12 years old. He became the assistant engraver, or an assistant engraver, in 1869. And after his father, William, died, he was appointed in early 1880 to become the new chief engraver, and he held that post for 37 years. And all told, he was an engraver at the Mint for 48 years. I think it may be the longest tenured of anyone. He, of course, created lots of patterns and medals, but he's best known for his regular issue silver coins, particularly the Barber dimes, quarters, and halves. He did a lot of commemoratives, a lot of them in partnership with George Morgan. He did the Hawaiian issues of 1883, Dominican Republic, and Cuban issues. In fact, the last Barber coin was struck in 1961, but it was in Cuba, and he died in 1917. So it was really kind of an honor for me to be able to completely change the image of him to a much more accurate depiction of a likable and distinguished gentleman who was a family man. And the lower right picture there is him with his first grandchild, the only one born while he was alive. That was taken just a few months before he died. And just to give you an idea how well respected he was, when he died, the Mint lowered the flag to half staff on the day of his funeral. There's the letter Roger Burdett found in the archives requesting permission to do so. And it turns out Barber is the last Mint official of any rank to be given that high honor. So again, it just shows how liked and well respected he was by his peers. So now let's just go into Barber coins themselves. I'm going to do an introduction and then get into each of the 4 series, talk about the overview, key dates, my favorite and underrated dates, overrated dates, and collecting do's and don'ts, and just give you some insights on why you might want to collect Barber coins. And then I'll finish with a little blurb on the BCCS. So there's actually 4 series. We all know Barber dimes, quarters, and half dollars, but Barber also designed the Liberty nickel or V nickel, and honestly, nobody really calls it the Barber nickel. It's the Liberty nickel, but that's a Barber coin, and we'll talk about all 4 of these. So some initial thoughts to sort of set a context. I believe that Barber coins, especially circulated ones, are all unique. They're all different. They're each an individual artifact, and they're different from one another. And really, this is true of all old silver series like Liberty Seated and Bust. But this is really different than what I'll call commodity coins, coins that are available by the millions in BU condition, like BU Morgans, Walkers, Mercury dimes, which largely look the same. This just isn't the case with Barbers. So let's just go into Barber dimes. If you have an album of Barber dimes, there's 74 holes in it for dates and mints. And really all but a few dates are readily available in lower grades, and most 20th century dates are available in all grades, up to and including mint state. One nice thing about Barbers is they wear quite well, and they look reasonably attractive all the way down to low grade of, say, very good. The key date is the 1895-0, 440,000 minted. The 1895 P is a semi-key along with a number of San Francisco issues. But complete sets of these dimes are readily achievable. I mean, they're a challenge, but they certainly can be done without a whole lot of trouble. The key date, the 1895-0, it's available in low grades, although you still have to look for it. Mid-grade pieces are very scarce, higher circulated grades more so, and mint state coins are just outright rare. Some of my favorite dates and underrated dates, 1896-0 and 97-0. You never see them nice in mid grades or higher grades. If you find a VF or XF, it's usually going to have a problem like scratches or cuts or harshly cleaned. Finding a nice one is almost impossible. Other underrated dates, the 92S in low and mid grades is a little bit underappreciated. 1900-0, 1909S are underrated. I think a 19080 is a real sleeper. If you're building a set of VG or better, the 080 may very well be one of those last coins you find. It's just not available when you're looking for one. The 1909D is an interesting one. It's a date that sounds like it should just be dirt common, but it isn't. Try to find one in any grade. It's a challenge. Overrated dates. The number one in that category, the 1913S. It's overrated because of its mintage, 510,000, which is the second lowest mintage in the series, only a little more than the 95-0, but it was late in the series and it was hoarded in low grades. The mintage was known by everybody, and by 1913, you actually had people collecting date and mint marks. So this coin became a target. And so while it is very scarce in high grades, it's a fairly easy coin to find, but it's just too expensive for its availability. In mint state, 95P and 94P, apparently someone saved them in new conditions. So they're probably a little more expensive than they should be. Barber dimes have a lot of varieties. Now, most of them are repunch dates, mostly very minor and really have no premium whatsoever for them. There are some interesting varieties, and some of them are controversial. You may have heard of the 1909 O over inverted D. This one is almost certainly just a repunch mint mark, and there's no D under there, but it's another O. The 93 over 2 used to be a known variety or a recognized variety, but the grading services have delisted it because late die states, they couldn't tell what it is. I've seen an early die state that makes it clear that it's a 2 under there. The coins that are currently graded as 93 over 2 commands a significant premium, but the major grading services no longer will grade any coins as 93 over 2. A fun variety is the 1893 S over S. It's often called a triple S because most of the examples have shelf doubling as well. And the picture in the upper right shows that there's a repunched S. The original S is way to the right, but then the primary S, the final S, has a little doubling there, but that's due to strike. It's not on the die. So it's really a repunch mint mark, but most of the examples have a third S in the shelf doubling. So it's popular. The most significant variety that's been found in the last decade is the 1906 D over O. Bill Fiva confirmed that he did overlays of mint marks and concluded it couldn't be anything else. However, it must have been where the coiner saw the results and yanked the die very quickly, because as of this time, after I think 5 years, there's still only one example known. And I look at every 1906 D, especially in low grade, that I find, but we're still looking to find another one. The most famous variety of the Barber dime series is actually technically a mint error. When they were producing the die, one reverse die, they accidentally used the mint mark punch for a quarter. And so it created a small mint mark, much smaller than it's supposed to be. This isn't a rare variety. I've cherry picked a few in low grades. It's scarce, fine, and above, and it's really rare in AU and better. So an AU or mint state 5.0 micro O cherry pick is a dream. And then one of my favorite topics. So here is a copy of a page from the Mint Director's report from 1894, from June, that shows the coinage by month by the 4 mints by denomination. And if you look right there under San Francisco in dimes, you'll see 24, $2.40. And of course, I'm talking about the famous 1894 S Barber dime. It is one of those classic U.S. rarities that you think of when you hear the 1804 dollar or the 1876 C 20-cent piece. Only 24 were struck, and until recently, it was a mysterious origin. People had their opinions about why they were made. Some thought it was to correct a bookkeeping error. Others thought it was they made special specimens for VIPs at some ceremony, but no one really knew for sure. Of the 24 coins that were minted, only 9 are known today. 2 of them circulated, and both of those are low grade. In fact, the pictured coin is the finer of the 2, the other one being an AG. The other 15 are unaccounted for and are presumed lost to circulation. The finest known, graded proof 66, sold 5 years ago at Fund for basically $2 million. So what really happened? Richard Kelly and Nancy Oliver have done some amazing research about the San Francisco Mint, and they found a lot of documents and historical records, but so we know what happened now. And in fact, the real closing on this whole thing came from an interview with the acting superintendent of the San Francisco Mint from 1894. And the interview was conducted the next year. And basically what happened is all worn out coins, hold coins, badly damaged coins, obsolete coins are pulled from circulation by banks and financial institutions and forwarded to treasuries and sub-treasuries to be delivered to mints for melting and recoining into current issues. This was a normal process. It happened at every mint, and it happened every year. And 1894 was no different. And what happened was about $1 million worth of this scrap silver coins came in to be melted. Now, they were in the midst of a recession in 1894, and they had a plenty of 1893 S dimes still on hand. So they didn't make any 1894 dimes in San Francisco in the first half of that year. But if you read Superintendent Barnett's last paragraph, basically when they took this silver, they made dollars, half dollars, quarters, but when they were done, they had a little left over that would not coin into quarters, halves, or dollars. So the last paragraph says it all. However, when nearly all of the subsidiary coin bullion had been utilized, we found on our hands a quantity that would coin to advantage only into dimes, and into dimes it was coined, making just 24 of them. Basically, they had 24 dimes worth of silver to use, and it doesn't fit evenly into a quarter. If they had had one more dimes worth of quarter, they would have made 10 more quarters, and there never would have been any 1894 S dimes. They unintentionally created a rarity for circulation, and they all assumed sometime between now and the end of the year, we're going to get orders for dimes, but they never did. So those 24 they made in June were the only ones they ever made. And that's what happened. They're just coins. And nine of them are known. We know 3 were sent east for assay. The chief coiner bought 2 of them at face value when they made them. And we know a banker in Ukiah, California, found 3 of them in their bag from the mint. So they just went out in circulation. They're just coins. Now, I was fortunate to examine the finest known, the James A. Stack specimen, and I got to spend a lot of time with it. And it is well struck, but it's not a real hammered strike like a proof would be. The edges are rounded or beveled. They're not squared like a proof. The denticles aren't strong. It has shelf doubling, which you don't generally find on proofs. The surfaces are only a little PL. In fact, if it was a Morgan dollar, it wouldn't even get a PL designation. Is it a proof? It isn't. It never was a proof, even though the grading services call them proofs, because that was the assumption that they were made for some special occasion and were presentation pieces. But now we know they're just coins thrown in the bags for circulation. Does it matter? Well, no, because they were all made the same way. But now, kind of, yes, it does matter, because we now know that they're actually a regular issue, although a very small one. So it's just kind of a neat discovery. So just wrapping up dimes. Dimes are cool because you can build a set for any budget. You can buy lower grade coins like the 1895 O on the right that look very nice for a low grade coin. And if you had a whole album of those, it would be fine. But don't buy coins below good for your set or below very good for your set. VG coins cost $1 or so more in most grades, for many of them, than good. So why buy the coin on the left? Buy a nice, attractive VG or better if you're doing a low grade set. Don't buy problem coins for your set. There aren't any dates in the series that don't come nice. And like everything else, learn to grade from yourselves. I've seen a lot of AUs and mint state holders and XFs and AU holders, et cetera. So learn for yourself. Quarters. This is the tough set. Most of the quarters available are good or below. There's a lot fewer low-grade ones than there used to be due to the silver melts. If you want to build a mid-grade set, say find XF, this is a very, very difficult project. It's not just the key dates, but many of the semi-keys are just impossible to find nice in those middle grades. If you have a very big checking account, you can always buy mint state coins of almost every date without much trouble at all, usually at auction. More and more coins are becoming not original anymore because people are dipping them, because the grading services used to reward people for dipping things. They're not so much now, but a lot of original coins are now lost. There aren't that many varieties in Barber quarters. Again, a lot of minor repunch dates. There's 2 repunched mint marks that are notable. The 92S over S is quite scarce. The 95S, which is more dramatic, is not. In fact, I cherry picked a very nice XF of the 95S over S. The set is most notable for what we call the big three. These are the key dates, and they are budget busters. The 1896S is the least rare of the three, 188,000 mintage, and roughly to the collectors, it's about as tough to find as a 95.0 dime. It's available in low grades up to VG, it's scarce finer, and it's actually really rare in mint state. The king of all 20th century regular issue silver coins in the US is the 1901S quarter, 72,000 and change mintage. No one saved it back then, and it's in the middle of the series. Most examples are fair to AG. Then you have some goods and VGs you can find once in a while. It's rare any better than that. Find them in state. And then there's the lowest mintage of any US 20th century silver coin, 1913S, 40,000. It is not as rare as the 01S because it was late in the series and was saved more as they switched to the Liberty Standing quarter. It's available in low grades, and most of the AGs or fair coins are really butt ugly. They're stained, they're cut, scratched. For some reason, there's just a real lot of ugly, fair and AGs out there. But you can find this coin up to VG, and surprisingly, several rolls were saved in mint state. So you can find it in UNC, even though it costs a lot of money. But in Vine and VF, it's rare, and it's extremely rare in XF and AU. I doubt that there's more than a dozen coins in either grade known. And most people building an XF to AU set of Barber quarters end up buying a mint state 13S because they can find those and they can't find the XF AU coins. And because of their high price, a lot of people are just saying, I'll build a set of quarters, but not the 01S or even the big three, because they may want an XF set of quarters, but they don't want to put an AG 01S in the set. So more and more people are doing that. Critical for these big three Barber quarters is authentication. Buy a certified example from a major grading company, that is one of the four that guarantee their work. The coin in the upper right was in a slab, but it was also a fake. But it wasn't one of the four major grading services. The diagnostics, they're actually all three are easy to authenticate, and the diagnostics are on the BCCS website. So if you have any doubt, go to our website and you'll see how to authenticate all three of them. Favorite dates. The 1898S in mint state is one of the best kept secrets in the series. Almost the entire mintage was exported to the Philippines, and a lot of them stayed there, but a lot of the ones that came back in a higher grade were XFAU coins that were cleaned. There's just really only a few dozen mint state coins in existence of that date. And most coins in 60 to 62 slabs are not mint state at all. Again, you have to look at the coin, not just the grade on the slab. 97.0 and 97S are favorites. The 97S is very popular. The 1901.0 is one of my favorite dates in the series. It gets, the 01S gets all the publicity, but try to find a 1901.0. It's probably one of those coins that it's the last one you'll find to complete your set. 1914S, same mintage as the 16D Mercury dime, by the way. You never see it in XF and above. The 1909.0 was underrated for years, but it finally has the respect it deserves as prices have gone up significantly. However, the 1908S in VF and above doesn't get the respect it deserves, and you never see them in higher grades because the people who own them won't sell them for the current prices. They're just too cheap. And really, there are no overrated issues for the quarter series anymore. The 01S has come down in price in lower grade to the right level. Collecting do's and don'ts. Again, except for the big three, you can build a set in any budget. Buy VG coins are better. If you're going to buy the big three and you really need to do like an AG for the 1901S, not all AG coins are the same. Some are just shy of good and others are nowhere near good. Buy one of the ones that's just not quite as high a level as a good. If you want higher grade coins for the big three, you may have to settle for a problem coin. But if you're going to do that and you don't want an AG, you want a VF, and you can only find a problem coin, make sure the problem is not too objectionable. Make sure the coin isn't unattractive to look at, and make sure it's discounted enough or you will own it forever. Okay. Barber halves. Okay. This set is got no showstoppers in it, and it is the easiest of the three silver series to complete in low grades. In low grades, the key dates are the 1892-0 and 92S, low mintage coins, followed by the 97-0 and 97S. What's interesting about this series is the key dates in low grades are not key dates in the high grades. The 1904S in high grade is the key date of the series by a good margin, followed by the 96-0 and the 1901S. And the series has one major famous and rare variety. So the 1904S half. In the last decade, the prices of these coins have skyrocketed because people are really realizing how rare they are in high grades. In mint state, this coin is rarer than the 1901S Barber quarter. It's that rare. Again, most pieces are overgraded. David Lawrence, who wrote the initial Barber book, said buying an 04S at auction is an eye-opening experience. Any nice mint state coin will probably set a new price record for the grade. Again, I would say more than half of the pieces I've seen in mint state holders are not mint state. So buy the coin, not the plastic. Now, another thing the halves are known for are low mintage Philadelphia dates late in the series, 1910, 13, 14, and 15. And look at those mintages. Very, very low. The 1914, 124,000. The 1910 has a mintage less than the SVDB, but it's a $35 coin or so in very good. Why? It's not rare. All of these dates, including the 13, 14, 15, are touted as rare, but they were also hoarded in low grades after the series ended, and they are always available in low grades. However, in high grades, all four dates are tough. But a VG 1914, 15, 13, they're all easy to find. 13. Now we have the famous Micro O, 1892 Micro O. Same thing with the dime. One reverse die was prepared accidentally using the mint mark punch intended for the quarter. Again, in this case, excuse me, I get a drink. In this case, the coiner must have realized that this was unacceptable and yanked the die. There's only a few dozen known, but this variety was known by 1893. Like the regular 92Os, most of these coins are known in AG and good or mint state or really close to it. There are very few mid-grade pieces of this coin, like the one pictured. Favorite dates? Well, the and overrated dates. 04S, it's the hands down key in high grade. However, it's common in low grade and it's overrated. It's too expensive in VG 10 and below because people pay extra because they can't find the higher grade ones. So people will say, oh, rare date. It's not a rare date. It's rare in high grades. The 93S is a date that's really not known except to knowledgeable collectors as being tough. The 96-0, again, often overlooked. It isn't the sexy 01S kind of a date, but try to find one in VF and above. You can't. 98-0, overlooked. The 1892-0 is very overrated in low grades. It's not scarce, but you need one anyway, and it is one of those keys, even though it's not scarce. So it's not going to get cheaper. And I think that the 13, 14, and 15 Philadelphia issues are overrated in low grades. They're just too expensive for how rare they are. Collecting do's and don'ts. There's something that's about the halves that's kind of different than the other series. All the other things still hold, but here, if you want to buy or build a certified set in, say, VF, it will cost you a ton more than buying a raw set. For some reason, a lot of dealers think a $70 or $75 VF common date Barber half once you get it in a PCGS holder, is worth $200 because they want to sell them for what they think the coin should be worth, not what it is worth. So they're buying all the VFs they can and sending them in. So learn how to grade for yourself and buy raw coins. And especially if you want an album, buy them raw. Just learn how to grade and also learn how to tell if a coin's cleaned. Right now, I'd say the VF grade is the most popular, but also AU, especially 55 and 58. It's a very popular grade for this series. And lastly, we have the Liberty Nickel. It was Barber's first coin. And this is a very different series because the entire series is made entirely in Philadelphia, except for the last year when Denver and San Francisco made one. So you have a total of 31 years, and as a result, 33 date and mint marks to buy. We all have heard of the 13 Liberty Nickel. It's not technically a coin. It's really a token. It was made illegally, and they'd go to jail if they did that today. But it's obviously a well-valued rarity. The Liberty Nickel is the easiest of the Barber sets to put together, mainly because there's only 33 coins in it, and there's really no budget busters in this one either. I imagine all of you are familiar with the story. The original design from Charles Barber, even though it wasn't his idea to do this, did not have the word cents on it. It was omitted from the coin, and some clever people realized, gee, the half eagle is the same size as the nickel. And since it doesn't have cents, I'll read the edge, plate it in gold, and spend it as a half eagle. And so this was obviously discovered pretty quickly, and then they changed the design and put the word cents on the back, and made a ton of coins that year. The ones that got saved are the no cents variety mostly. People know or have heard about the racketeer nickels, these ones that have been plated, but most of the ones you see out there are actually modern creations. The real ones were done on mint state or nearly mint state coins. They reeded the edge. If you see a racketeer nickel, it's a VG, or one that's got a plain edge, it's probably a modern creation. So be very careful if you really want to buy a racketeer nickel. Most of them are just junk. So for the series, the key date, undisputed 1885. It's not the low mintage, but it's by far the key date. Like the 13S quarter, most of the really low-grade examples where you find most of them are really ugly. I mean, we're talking ugly, ugly, ugly. If you want mid-grade pieces or higher grade, you'll have actually an easier time finding proofs than, say, an XF 1885. For the series, most dates are common in all grades, including the higher circulated grades and even in mint state. So if you want to put a nice higher grade set together, most of the dates you'll have no trouble finding. And completing this series is very doable. Because almost all of the series was made in Philadelphia, a lot of people are collecting proofs now for this series. And so they're building a set of 31 proofs. Few add the 12D and 12S in mint state, but most people don't bother. And others just collect the type coin. They want an 1883 without cents, and they want one with cents. So that's how people generally collect these. There was always a debate for a number of years, was the 1886 or the 12S, which is the low mintage, the scarcer number 2 coin. And the Barber Society did a survey and census study a number of years ago, and we found the 86 wins that hands down. It's the number 2 coin. The 12S is a distant third. Other good dates, 1888 and 94, they can be hard to find in better grades. The most underrated coin in the set, the 1912D. Try to find the nice one. They're just not there. But the 12S gets all the press because of the low mintage. Collecting Liberty Nickels. Again, most dates are available of all grades, including higher circulated grades. So one, don't buy low grade coins except for the keys if you have to from a budget perspective. Don't buy problem Liberty Nickels. Make sure they're nice because, I mean, why would you ever buy the coin that's pictured there on the right? If you did, you'd never sell it. And there's no reason to buy a coin like that. So, you can buy a lower grade like a VG or a fine 1885, 6 and 12S, but don't buy a problem coin. You'll never, ever get rid of them. So why would you consider collecting Barbers? Well, there's a number of reasons. Let's start with artistry. Now, artistry is going to be a personal choice. I know people that think the Barber designs are hideous, and I know other people think it's one of the most beautiful designs we ever had. It's really a personal choice. However, Barbers do lend themselves to create some spectacular looking coins. The silver coins often can be found with a cameo contrast and not just on proofs. So high grade Barbers can look very, very beautiful, especially if they're toned attractively. Another thing is the budget perspective. The coins wear down well. This was part of Barber's skill in engraving and sculpting, is he thought about how the coin would look, not just as it comes off the press, but after years of circulation. And so his coins wear very nice. And even in the low grade of VG, they're attractive. And I wouldn't dislike looking at a full set of coins that look like those. But compare it to a VG Buffalo nickel, where the date it's visible, but it's kind of going on the way out. The word Liberty is mushy and blending in with the field and the rim. It's just not a coin that wears well. The Standing Liberty quarter, the date's nearly gone. You can't really tell what that wall is on either side of her. And I've had some people say that the shield looks like a tumor in low grades on her chest. It's a beautiful coin in high grade, but doesn't wear well. Then that's one of the things that Barber was really skilled at. So if you want to build a set of these coins, you don't have to spend tons of money to get attractive looking coins. So there's something for every budget. The dimes, there's only one key date. It's very straightforward to complete. The halves, there's no budget busters. You can build a low to even mid-grade set without any big difficulty. If you want a big challenge that will take you years and dedication, the quarters is for you. The big three, but also all those semi-key dates that you just cannot find nice. It's the biggest challenge in Barbers. And Liberty nickels, straightforward set, mostly P mints and just one key. So no matter how much money you have to spend, there's a Barber for you. The last kind of the topics I wanted to address here, I want to compare scarcity. So anybody that thinks the 1909 SVDB, the 1893 S Morgan dollar, the 1916 D coin is a rare coin, you better think again. 50,000, over 1/10 of the mintage SVDBs are estimated to survive today, and PCGS alone has certified over 6,500 of them in XF and above. The 93 S Morgan, 10 to 12,000 survive today, more than 10% of the mintage. Again, PCGS has certified over 6,500 of them. Not a rare coin. The 16D dime, same thing, 10,000 in all grades, and even at XF and above, there's over 560 by PCGS alone. These are not rare coins. They're popular. They're the key dates of those popular series, but they're not actually rare coins. But look at the Barber quarter, the 14S. It's not the key date. It's not the number 2, the number 3, the number 4. It's just one of those semi-keys. Same mintage of the 16D dime, only 2,500 in all grades survive, and only 149 in XF and above from PCGS. Okay, now look at the prices. Which one's the bargain? There are about the same number of 14S quarters in mint state as there are 93S Morgan dollars in mint state. And yet the Morgan dollar costs over 100 times more than the Barber quarter. It's all because how many people collect Morgan dollars, and it's the key date of the series, whereas the Barber quarter is just a semi-key in a much less collected series. So if you want a lot of bang for your buck as far as scarcity, Barbers is something you ought to really consider, because they're just underappreciated. And let's talk about the proofs. Even the proofs are bargains. Did you know you could build an 1899 proof set cheaper than it would cost you to buy a 1936 proof set? Even though it has an Indian cent, a Liberty nickel, and a Barber dime quarter and $half in it. But the fact is, most people that think of proofs, they don't go back any earlier than 1936. They don't think of them. But look at the prices. The 1936 Walking Liberty half, mintage 3,900. A proof 64 will cost you $2,000, where an 1899 mintage 846 in proof 64 is 1350. Again, which one would you rather own? I know what one I'd rather own. So it's just one of these reasons why you ought to consider Barbers. For references, the best general reference on the series, on all of the series, are David Lawrence's books, The Complete Guide to Barber Dimes, Quarters, and Halves. There's also a book on Liberty Nickels. They're 30 years old, these books, but David Lawrence knew barbers so well that all of his information, the rarities, the scarcity, all the things, they hold up today, and his rarity estimates are dead on. There's also a Whitman book of barber silver coins that only cover the dimes, quarters, and halves. It's a pretty good general reference. The David Lawrence complete guidebooks are available via our website on the Newman portal. So these books have been out of print for 30 years. They're highly demand, but you can look up the information on the Newman portal. And just a little promo for the BCCS. We are a nationwide club. We have about 300 members all over the country. We publish a quarterly journal, and it's mailed to our members. Articles written by our members and occasionally guests with research, varieties, discoveries, stories, anecdotes. There's a wide range of topics in our journal. And our members get 4 of them each year. We also do about 20 regional events in a normal year with exhibits and educational programs and meetings with camaraderie at our club table. We do Baltimore, we do Fun, A&A, PAN, GSNA, so we get around. And the dues for the BCCS is just $15 a year. So for 4 journals, it's a pretty good buy. And finally, our barbercoins.org, that's our website. We've got information about the club, of course. We have an application there, the list of upcoming events we're going to be doing. But also we have information on all 4 series. There's a photo grade section for all 4 series. The authentication of the big 3 barber quarters is there. Rarity ratings for each date and grade are there. So if you're looking for an 1896-0 half and VF, that will tell you how hard it's going to be to find one. Plus our reports there and other goodies for our members and visitors. Before I ask for questions, I do want to mention that tonight I'm actually doing a second presentation, an educational program for the Liberty Seated Collectors Club on William Barber's 20-cent pieces. Is at 9 o'clock Eastern time. There's a Zoom link there, but if you don't want to write that down, if you go to the Liberty Seated website, lsccweb.org, and go to our upcoming events page to the right and click on that first entry, it will take you to the Zoom meeting. So everyone is welcome to join. You don't have to be a member or even remotely interested in Liberty Seated Coins to join that. So I hope some of you will take advantage of that. So unless you're sick of hearing me talk. So I've covered an awful lot of material in probably longer than you wanted, but it was a pretty good pace. I'll open it up for questions. And I realize my video has been turned off. So let me turn that.
It was a very comprehensive presentation. I do have a question, mainly because I have a 1914 proof $half,
Yeah.
which has been graded as proof 61. It's one of the, I think it's probably the lowest mintage proof, but I couldn't swear to that. It's the only one.
It's certainly one of the lower ones. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
It's certainly one of the lower mintage proofs.
Right. Is there any particular reason why you didn't expand a little bit more on proofs?
Mainly for time, because I think we went.
That's kind of what I thought, but I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, most people don't collect the proofs. If we go back, we're trying to actually popularize proofs. The cover of this year's, I think I'm still sharing the screen, right?
Yes.
Am I still? Yeah. So the proof, the cover of this year's journal features proof coins. So we're trying to promote the fact that proof barbers are really a bargain. And, you can get a mid-grade proof coin. It's really attractive and very affordable. And we are trying to increase the interest in the proofs.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
So, John, this was obviously outside the scope of what you were talking about, but you mentioned Barber did the Hawaiian coins for Hawaii. And I think, did he do the Philippine coins as well?
Well, he assisted a local Filipino in the design. So he helped, but he doesn't have real end credit for the designs, but he had his influence on it for sure. He also did patterns for Sichuan province in China for 1897. In fact, a reader found a picture of Barber and Morgan working off-site in Bridgeton, New Jersey at the Parachute Machine Company, testing mint equipment and Barber's dies for Sichuan province, China. So it's just more evidence that Barber and Morgan worked very closely together, including outside the mint. But yeah, he did those designs as well. And he helped with the design of a Haiti coin. So Barber, in his 48 years at the mint, left his mark for sure.